LNC Radio 113.8 FM. That was The Clash, Rock the Casbah. Classic song, classic song. Really reminds me of a different era. Not that I was alive, but there's something about the way he screams in that song when he's like just before he gets into the chorus, like he just does like a sorry for that. He just does a kind of this weird scream. It reminds me a bit of Red Dwarf actually, the old British sitcom Red Dwarf. Shout out to anyone who's watched Red Dwarf. Great, great old sitcom. Reminds me a bit of that when Lister's playing the guitar, especially when it's like the polymorph. I think what's it called? The poly something, and that it pretends to be Lister playing the guitar, and it actually plays it well because it it takes his memories and his personality, so that even from a personality perspective, you cannot tell it's not him if you're a friend, say. But because it's taking everything from his perspective, he's so delusional that he's amazing at the guitar. He thinks he's the best at the guitar. The Axeman is back. He thinks he's amazing. So when Polymorph plays, he plays like a real rock star, and it sounds awesome. And then all his friends shoot that one because they know it's not the real one. Red Dwarf was an amazing show. It was such a good show. I think my favourite season was probably season 1. Which doesn't sound great when you consider that there's like fucking 12 seasons after that or whatever. But season 1 had. There were only 3 of them at that point instead of 4 main characters. And I think the difference between seasons 1 and 2, because 2 and 1 are very closely aligned, and the seasons after that, is that seasons 1 and 2 really focused on the characters themselves while they're in a spaceship in space with spacey stuff and technological sci-fi stuff happening around them. But it's really a human drama, I guess. Not a drama, but a comedy. And I'm not going to use the word dramedy because it's not really that either. It's not a drama, but there are some moments of poignancy, and I would say, and those moments all tend to focus on the actual characters themselves, like in season 2 when Rimmer finds out his dad died. Now it's been 3 million years. He's a hologram. He hasn't been alive for 3 million years, and then he's been resurrected. So you think that, oh well, obviously your dad's dead. It's been 3 million years, but he finds the actual letter because a mail pod arrives from Earth. That took 3 million years to get there. I think that's a joke about second class post. And he actually finds the letter from his mother or whatever about his dad's death. Obviously, his mum's also dead. His brothers are dead. Everyone who ever knew is dead. But that moment of realizing that it affected someone else, I suppose. And there's so many good moments like that where it's more. There are these kind of sci-fi ideas that episodes are built around or which incorporate themselves somewhere within, but the first 2 seasons really focus on the human side of that, like the characters themselves, whereas it felt like from season 3 to sort of 8 it was more like kind of mocking Star Trek. I can't lie. Like it was still a similar kind of type of humor, like the same really type of humor, the same kind of obviously the same characters plus one, um, but it felt more like the characters weren't real characters; they were just kind of comedic bits unto themselves, who would go through different sci-fi situations and sci-fi tropes, and the value of the show emerged more from how those broken, funny people interact with this broken, funny world, which is sci-fi. But there's the difference being that it's more about the world itself in the later seasons and using the characters to explore that, while in the previous seasons it's more about the characters and using the world to explore them. I suppose is a way of is the way I'm saying it, and I won't apologise for that, dickhead. No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you that. But Red Dwarf, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Amazing show. We've got Craig Charles from Robot Wars and Takeshi's Castle. It's got Danny John Jules, who was also in Blade 2. And then it's got Chris Barry, who might have done some other stuff, and Robert Llewellyn, who did a YouTube carpool show at some point in the 2010s, I think. So that's fun. Red Dwarf, great one. Blackadder, another great old sitcom. Probably my favourite series of that is series 3. Season 1 was kind of a bit of a trial period for the show, and I think it was like a significant amount of time before season 2 as well, and it was very different. So I only watched it once and didn't really get it or enjoy it that much. I mean, you still see some of it in there, but some of what would become Blackadder in there, but it really is substantively different, I would say. But seasons 2, 3, and 4, and the little Christmas time travel special, good stuff. Very good stuff. Season 3 especially, I think that Georgian time period is captured really well. The hypocrisies and the inequalities and stuff, really, really well. I mean, it's not doing social commentary, and it's far less. I don't think you would call Blackadder character driven, nor particularly poignant in any regard. It is just funny, and it's good at being funny. Although I do wonder about the use of laugh tracks in comedy generally. So people have said before to me that if The Big Bang Theory didn't have a laugh track, it wouldn't be funny. My argument is that with the laugh track, it's still not funny. So I don't know how much you can put the credit of it on the laugh track. I don't think it's a very good show at all anyway. But you get to things like Blackadder or Red Dwarf. I mean, an interesting example is that on Netflix for Red Dwarf, season 7, for some reason they use like extended cuts of certain episodes, but those extended cuts don't actually have a laugh track around them. And yeah, it is very awkward, I won't lie. It's really awkward. But then part of me wonders whether that's due to the lack of laugh track or due to the comedic timing that's built around having a laugh track and not having one. So the problem is that if you, as an actor, know that in your sitcom you're producing or filming or acting in, if you as an actor say a line, you have to wait a couple seconds, or another actor has to wait another couple seconds before they can say anything, because there'll be the laugh track. If you take the laugh track out, you edit it out, or you just don't edit it in, then you just have someone saying a joke, and then 2, 3, 4, and then someone else is saying something. So obviously, without a laugh track, a show that's made to have a laugh track will be worse. But it is interesting on like just a social contagion type thing. I mean, laughter is so contagious, but only in certain contexts and from certain people as well. Some people have a very contagious laugh. Other people do not have as contagious a laugh, I would say. And that's no, you know, not adding them, but some people just don't have as contagious a laugh. Um, But laughing generally, I think you could say, is quite contagious. If everyone's laughing, generally you laugh as well. Is it because you found it funny? Are you relieving the tension? Are you trying not to appear awkward? Interesting questions. My question would be, does it matter? After all, I mean, if you're laughing and you're not self-conscious of yourself laughing, then you're having a good time. So why? Yeah, I don't think it matters. I think if you're experiencing positive emotion, then just enjoy that experience. Very simple. Very simple. Um, it's almost like a sort of Sadhguru type fucking quote. You know what I mean? Like, he's very much like that. Well, I don't know about him specifically, but a lot of those Hindu guys are very much like that. Where if life is all pleasure, I, that sounds great for you. Nice. Like I'm happy for you, and like they mean it. They're like, if you really think you have your life purpose and you have everything figured out, or that you know what the truth is, everyone should be happy for you. They shouldn't be admonishing you or putting you down or anything like that. They should be praising you. Not well, maybe not praising you, but they should be happy for you. If you found truth and happiness and meaning, most people are just trying to shoot that down because they don't think you have found it. A lot of these Hindu guys will say, "Nice, well done. You don't need to hear my words then." The problem is, a lot of those people who say they have had those things then kind of still want to hear those people's words anyway, which tends to indicate that maybe they don't actually feel those things. They just want to think that they do. And human self-deception is a massive problem in the world. It's a massive problem in the world. I mean, all of us deceive ourselves about so many things. Um, and the problem is that it's antithetical to the idea that you never think you're wrong. And that's not me saying, like, when I say you never think you're wrong, what I mean is you can reflect on the fact that you have been wrong in the past and that some of your beliefs may be wrong. But obviously, you can't give a specific belief that you hold which is wrong, because otherwise, you wouldn't hold that belief. You might act in accordance with the belief, but you still wouldn't hold the belief if you know it to be wrong. Um, well, I was going somewhere with that. Self deception. Um, I mean, they go hand in hand, really. You don't know when you're wrong. You can never know when you're wrong. So, you can never. Have you ever noticed? Have you ever noticed? Just to go on a tangent, but it's related. Have you ever noticed how to a friend, say, or a family member, their own true nature is completely hidden to themselves, and yet to everyone else, including you, it's completely self-evident. But likewise with you, you seek to understand your own nature, your own heart, your own soul, your own mind. You seek to understand this in a fundamental way. There's a level of confusion about who you are and how you act and what you look like while you're doing so. I mean, this is self-consciousness really, but and self-awareness. But most people's self-awarenesses are nowhere near as good at perceiving who they actually are as other people's awareness of that person, of yourself. At least this is how it seems to me. As I said, you can have someone who they don't know who they are, and they'll ask you like, "Oh, what do you think is something like bad about me?" Or what do you think is something like really good about me? Or like, do you think I'm right about this? Or is this a good way to act in the world? Or let me tell you a story and tell me like how you react to that story. Like, did I make the right decision or not? Or they're trying to piece together who they are in some way. They're trying to understand how their mind works, how why they do the behaviors that they do, and often keep doing. And of course, to you, it's most of the time it's completely self-evident why they act the way they act. You're like, well, have you noticed how there's a pattern here? You do that, but you also do this and that and this and that, and those things reinforce thing A. Things B through E reinforce thing A. And likewise, A reinforces D and E, or whatever, you know? People can see your flaws on a much more systemic level than you can kind of see them, and realize how actually most people are not really that contradictory. People can hold contradictory beliefs, but in terms of their actual actions, most people are not that contradictory. Selfish people generally act selfishly, regardless of what their actual belief systems are, or what they say their belief systems are, or what they internally dispute about their belief systems. A selfless person is generally just selfless, and everyone else can see that. A selfish person is generally selfish, and everyone can see that. Whereby even in interactions which are not strictly about one's self-interest or the interest of others, you can see how those things influence someone's decision. So, human nature, very interesting. Obviously speaking, I mean, how much has been written about? What is the thing that's been written about the most? Is my question. Um, I've been doing a lot of religious studies at the moment, amateur religious studies. I mean, just a couple hours ago, I did a treatise on different belief systems and stuff. But the reason why I'm so passionate about it, today even, is just because in the past few weeks, I've just been months even, I've just been looking much deep, much deeper into it than what I have in the past. Actually reading biblical texts, or Quranic texts, or Hermetic texts, or Hindu texts, or whatever. A lot of reading, a lot of exegesis. A lot of exegesis, which is kind of exegesis is like it's kind of like biblical analysis, basically biblical interpretation and analysis. Um, doesn't have to be biblical, but biblical exegesis is exegesis in a biblical lens, right? So, um, but exegesis is something you can apply to every and any sort of theological tradition, especially one that really has a historical backbone to it. And it's one of the things that I'm realizing is that the more I look into a religious thing, like a particular verse in the book of John or something, you know, the more I look into it, the deeper it goes. The more research there is about that, the more scholars are arguing about that one specific thing. There might be a book dedicated to that one word, or a one verse, or one chapter in a Bible, you know. There might be mountains of scholarly research just about particular concepts within a particular book, within, say, the Bible, or whatever. Um, there's so much argument back and forth, from atheists to agnostics to theists to deists, people who believe there was a creator God but who is not interventionist, or pantheists, or um, pagans. There's so much back and forth in every single direction, from every single angle, between every single movement. You can find I don't know if you can. You can probably find a debate between an atheist and a pagan, or like a Muslim and a Hindu, or you know, obviously a Christian and a Jew or something. You can find debates, or a Christian and a deist, say, or Hindu and a pantheist or whatever. Like there's so many ways in which these dialogues can be constructed, and useful information can be extracted out in so many ways. I mean, this is the dialectical practice. What a dialectical practice is, what a dialectics is kind of highlighting what you already know but do not realize that you already know. You know, if you go back to, you know, the Greeks, their dialectical practices often take the form of a philosopher and a non-philosopher, or a series of non-philosophers, or a group, having a conversation. And through asking the right questions, said philosopher can enlighten the people asking the questions as to what they already believe. And it might actually not be them asking the questions, it might be him asking them the questions. The philosopher might ask the non-philosopher a question, and the non-philosopher, using whatever intuition and rationale and logic makes sense to them, will answer the question, because they already have that framework and they already have that belief, so they'll answer the question. And so all you need to keep doing is keep asking the questions which highlight their already existing beliefs and how they process thoughts, how they sort of, you know, how they work them out, how they figure them out, how they process them. You enlighten the non-philosopher as to the process that they use without realizing it, and the beliefs that they already have without realizing it, to answer the question in a way that they already maybe kind of should agree with, but do not realize it. It's very interesting because, you know, we all have different frameworks for understanding the world and different sets of knowledge that is not the same in any one human. No one human has the same exact knowledge as any other human, you know? But you can kind of already piece together how you think about things before you even thought about those things in some way. Or at least someone else can do that for you, like with the dialectical practice. I mean, you could get a philosopher who just sort of knows you, I would say, knows your personality, knows your belief systems, knows how you think about the world. And through thinking through your lens, they can arrive at what you would think about a topic you've never thought about. And that's quite interesting because, I mean, it implies the knowledge is there but not accessed, but still there. In the same way that, I mean, books are such an interesting thing. You know, my bedroom at home is got shelves all around with just books, and I'm not some academic. Some of them are Percy Jackson, but a lot of them are. Most of them aren't Percy Jackson, but some of them are Percy Jackson. So my point being is that there's all these books around me, and many of them I haven't even read. I've read Percy Jackson, but many of the books around me I haven't read at all. And yet they do contain knowledge in them. And they are right there. And if I read them, I will get the knowledge out of them. And if I don't read them, I will not get the knowledge out of them. But they are still there, and they still contain that knowledge. But then it gets back to the whole, does a tree make a sound if it falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it? What if there were no humans on Earth? What if the rapture happened and suddenly every human was lifted up, including that guy and the tourist? What if that happened? Well, if every single human was lifted up simultaneously, but the world didn't explode or get destroyed or anything, there would be all these things we would call books just laying around. Now the question is, with no one there to absorb the knowledge within them, do they even contain knowledge? Without a conscious experience, or at least a feasible potential conscious experience happening upon said books, and speaking the same language and reading the same language and being able to understand said book, does that book contain knowledge at all? Is it just arbitrary lines of ink on a bit of paper? One to think about. One to think about. You're listening to LNC Radio 113.8. We've got some Dean Martin up now. Everybody loves somebody.